All right, guys. Can you guys hear me loud and clear? You guys able to hear me loud and clear? Hopefully you guys can hear me, can see me clear on a nice camera. There's enough light behind me, I hope. 26 of you are here. You know what to do. Like button, subscribe. Let's call in more people before we embark on this 90-minute conversation today. So I'm going to give you guys about 90 minutes to ask your questions and, of course, talk about my new reference speaker right here. The Sonus Faber SE17, all the way from Italy. I know most of you are interested in finding out why I ended up buying this loudspeaker. There's always a lot of reasons why. One of the reasons is a great opportunity for me to enter this brand. Originally, I wanted to go and buy the Sonus Faber Aida 2. And for a long time, I was in the middle of a lot of conversations with dealers, a lot of my sources, to see if we can make something happen. Long story short, we could not make anything happen. And that happens with business, okay? Sometimes I have full intentions of buying something. I am ready with money in hand. Long story short, the other side sometimes, we're just not, we don't have a meeting of the minds, if that makes sense. So I waited patiently for about 3 years. Couldn't get my hands on the Aida 2. And again, timing. And I will get back to timing and why timing is important with what I do. Well, all of a sudden, the stars moved around, the universe aligned, and I ended up with the father of the Aida 2, the Sonus Faber SE17. Not to be confused with the original Sonus Faber that was released back in 2012. This may look alike, and you might see several versions of online of the former Sonus Faber, including like a black color and a chrome plate on the top and chrome outriggers and all of this stuff. That is the original Sonus Faber. Don't get it confused with this one. This is the new upgraded model, okay? So let me circle back to what I said earlier about timing. A lot of you are always interested in knowing, you guys want to know, how can I do this at such a high level? So I'm going to explain to you how I am able to do this, pull this off as often as you see it happening. Number one, I buy a ton of things aggressively. I am not the guy that is going to sit around, think about it for 4 days, 5 days, call my wife, my mom, my dad, my cat, my dog, my donkey, and consult with them to see if I should buy it or not. That is not how Jay operates. I operate at a much faster pace than many of you ever will. Most of you are either doing this on the forums, reading articles, figuring out what your next step is. And by the time you make up your mind as far as what you want to buy, more than likely Jay already bought the item that you were eyeing on the different used audio websites, okay? So yes, I more than likely will beat you to whatever you want to buy. I don't wait. This is how I'm able to score good opportunities, good deals, good prices, okay? When a dealer is talking to you watching me, they have to put in time and effort into talking to you about the product, why it is something that you should buy, you should consider, why it is better than what you currently have. And so that goes through a lot of back and forth for days, oftentimes weeks, right? And so by the time you decide to buy, that dealer has already spent a lot of hours on the phone with you. Therefore, he can never give you the deal that I can get because he doesn't have to do this with me. There's none of that happening. When I come and knock on a door, I know what I want. Don't sell me on it. Sit down and discuss price. End of story. So the effort that my sources put in with me is almost non-existent. So it is quite attractive for them because of the fact that, let's face it, this product got recently discontinued, so the dealer was going to upgrade to the new $750,000 Sonus Faber Suprema. So he has no more use for this. He doesn't want to wait for 6 months and have countless conversations with many of you who probably wanted this speaker, and he figures, I don't want to sit around. I'm already giving somebody a deal. I don't want to be explaining why this product is so magnificent, why this person should buy it. Listen, I'm throwing you a deal, man. I don't want to be embarking on conversations, dude. Are you ready to pull the trigger or not? That dealer doesn't want to do that because he's already given a deal. And I don't blame him or her for not wanting to do this over the phone when they are already giving you a deal. This is when I enter and I snatch that product out of their hands. And that's how the Sonus Faber SE17 appeared in here in my lab. Okay. So that's the backstory. In case you were wondering, how is it that I do this? Okay. Yes, while you're sleeping, I am like a coyote at night, walking the fields in Arizona, seeing where my next prey will be. Where am I going to snatch my next, opportunity from? That is how I operate. So while you're sleeping in bed, snoring, talking to your family, I am already in the kitchen. I am already ready to cook or send wire transfers. So now you know how this is done. Now, the problem with that mentality is very few of you watching me have, I wouldn't say don't have the finances because I don't know your financial situation, but very few of you have the courage and the nerve to do what I do, which is why I continue to be the only channel on YouTube that will do the ultra high end, probably until you're sick of it. Because of my practices, because of how aggressive I am, because of how I can put together deals quickly like this in minutes. Sometimes I have big wire transfers going up, out of my bank account. That is very attractive to a lot of brands and a lot of dealers because there's very little effort on their part to move something that they no longer want to be talking to you guys about and burning and spinning their tires only for you to come and say, well, thank you for talking to me, dealer. For the next 3.5 weeks, I realize I don't want the product. They don't want to do that. So now you know, okay? When you're at this level, you have to be with your money in hand, ready to go. There's no time wasting. There's no, let me think about it. As a matter of fact, most of you who are following me, who do consultations with me, are aware of this because I've already disclosed this. If you have never heard of my consultation service, maybe this is the right time for you to check out my website, jaysaudiolab.com, and head to my services tab and see why this service is so important, okay, for you, so that you understand how you can play at this level and mitigate many of the losses that are typically incurred when you buy ultra high-end gear. Yes, I can pitch my own services because it is my channel. So if any of you have a problem with me doing this marketing, then you are not a follower of mine, okay? It is my channel, and I am going to promote what I sell because I've worked my you-know-what very hard by now. 5.5 years doing this. So yes. Also, if you're interested in merchandise, I have now shirts available. You can go to my last video where I unveil this speaker, and you can click on the link and get your own Jay's Audio Lab shirt. Okay, many of you have asked me at shows. I've gotten emails about perhaps your interest, in buying one of my shirts. So now you can do that. Okay, so if you have any interest in the merchandise, please head to the description of this video, and you'll find links that take you to your, to this website that will allow you to customize your own shirt with the color that you want, the size that you want, the logo that you want. All right, so there. Okay, so now we have 98 of you. Hit the like button now, please. Hit the like button. Okay, let's call on more people because we're going to have a beautiful discussion today, this beautiful Sunday, April 28th. It is 3:40 p.m. right now on the East Coast of the United States. All right, so let me look at some of the questions that are here, and I will go ahead and commence this madness. Where are my 901s? My 901s are right here. My 901 monos are here. I am in the process of hopefully unpacking them, believe it or not. I haven't even opened them yet, and place them right behind me where that Apex is, and that MSB S500 that is for sale, by the way, in case you are interested. This is for sale, the S500 MSB. They're going to go right on top of those two Artisania audio platforms, and we will see what kind of results we get with these Sonus Faber SE17s. Hey, Lucas. Hello from Sweden. Hi, guys. Yeah, they're a beautiful elephant in the room. They're gorgeous elephants in the room. Borison, yeah, could potentially be next. Borison could be a brand that might enter the lab at some point. If I end up doing a Borison at some point, I will say my interest will lie probably on the Borison M3, not the M6. That's way too much money. So if I end up doing a Borison, I'd say the M3 will be the one where I would more than likely go. Thanks, Maurice. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate that support. Thank you. Those of you that support me, you know I appreciate you all. It's not easy doing what I do here on YouTube, and I'm sure it's not easy for other YouTubers. So those of you who are behind what I do, who love what I do, who met me at shows, talk to me over the phone, that support my madness, you know I love you all. Okay. I have a ton of love for people like you that support me. Here's a great one. E.M. Brown. The word is the Sonus Faber are pleasant, but not resolving. Interesting, because let me show you here, right there. That right there is what makes the speaker very resolving. So remember what I said earlier. The original version did not have the carbon beryllium tweeter, carbon coated beryllium tweeter. It had a different tweeter that was actually utilized by Polk Audio eventually. Polk Audio speakers and many other brands eventually used this tweeter. I cannot remember the name or the type of tweeter that it was. And so that's one of the major changes on the SE17. Okay, they went for a beryllium tweeter. And that adds, as you know, if you know beryllium tweeter, it adds a ton of detail, nuance, microscopic um, things that are happening with the music. It just zooms in on all this detail. But the carbon coat that this beryllium tweeter has is what makes it be so smooth, non-fatiguing, never bright, never harsh. It never makes you feel like you're bleeding from your ears. None of that with this carbon coated beryllium tweeter. So you might be correct on the original Sonus Faber, but not the SE17. Excuse me. The SE17 added the beryllium tweeter, added a far superior, the best crossover that Sonus Faber had built up until that point in time. Okay, now of course the best crossover they have is that external crossover that you see with the Suprema $750,000 Sonus Faber. But the as far as crossovers, this is the best crossover that Sonus Faber has ever built in its history. Okay, so when I tell you that this speaker is revealing, I mean it. Okay. It's a very revealing loudspeaker with tons of resolution, incredible bass. To my surprise, okay, if you look at the speaker, the side firing 15-inch woofer is approximately about 18 inches away from the wall. And I thought, man, this is not going to work. The speakers are going to be too close to the boundaries, to the sidewall, and it's going to create boominess. Well, that all came to rest the moment I plugged in my Apex with my commander and I let the music flow through the speakers. I never had bass overhang, boominess. I never felt like it was too much for the room, because remember, there is an adjustment on the back of the speaker that allows you to passively attenuate that amount of bass, the bass that's going to that woofer. So there are times in which I actually wish I had a little more bass, believe it or not, but I know what it is. It's just the fact that the song may not have, the bass that I'm looking for, and it's not really a representation of the speaker's performance, if that makes sense. So there is no concern with the bass other than the fact that you need serious cojones, big donkey balls like cojones. You need to have serious grip on that woofer. You cannot mess around with crappy amplification. This needs serious amplifiers. Okay, it will literally make poor, weak amplifiers piss on themselves. This speaker does not mess around, and I'll expand on that on a future video. Okay, I've been playing with different things, so you'll understand what I'm trying to say here. Let me look at the next question. 148 of you guys, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please support my time here with you guys. Good question. I have not done the opposite, which is I haven't switched the position of the speakers so the woofers are inside. I want to do that at some point. The problem with the Sonus Faber is that they're so heavy, it's hard to drag them on the carpet. It's very difficult, okay? It's not an easy thing to do. That's the only thing that's very hard with this loudspeaker. But I think once I get help, I'll be able to switch positions and see what they do when the sub on the side or the woofer on the side is on the inside of the speakers. I have no idea how Borisons move air with such a small speaker, but I can tell you when I had the O2 Silver Supreme Edition, the top of the line O2, okay, with all the bells and whistles, I couldn't believe the bass I was getting out of those speakers. I'm still in shock how good this speaker is. As a matter of fact, I'll say it. Had I not bought the Sonus Faber that you see here, I probably would be using that O2 Silver Supreme Edition speaker as my reference speaker right now. It was that impressive, which is why I'm saying that if I ever end up doing Borison, I may have to take a look at the M3 Borison loudspeaker, which currently MSRP is for $280,000. Yes, $280,000, but I don't make up the prices. That's for you guys to talk to the brands. If you have a problem with prices, I am just the messenger, okay? What do I think about Zeloton? It's a great speaker, really good speaker, really clear sounding, lots of great engineering, lots of great driver technology and construction. Well, I'm glad you like my new speakers. I am in love with the new speakers. I really am. What amplifier? I am going to say for these speakers, I would stick probably with solid state amplification because of the woofers. They need a lot of control. They need a lot of damping factor. And if you can try amplify, I've been told, I don't know yet, I've been told that if I can try amplify the speaker, it is going to be that much better. The more power you feed this monster, the better it will be. So it'll be a matter of time before we know what the speaker can do. Because I do plan, hopefully, knock on wood, plan to try amplify the speaker. I just need to figure out how I'm going to do that. Sometimes we need an external crossover to dial in the gain on every amplifier so that all drivers are getting the same amount of juice, if that makes sense. Okay, I've already answered this before. I don't use my subs for two channel. My subs are for movies only. Movies only. That's the only reason why those REL subs are here. I don't have any intent on using them for my two channel. I really don't want to. Why don't I buy the Griffin Coda or the Ultra 9? Well, because first of all, the Ultra 9, as good as it is, it's never really crossed my mind, if I'm being honest. And I wanted to try the Sonus Faber brand because I've been talking about it to you guys for a long time. And that's the reason why. So I felt like in the order of like hierarchy, the Sonos Faber was more of the speaker that was above the Von Stryker as far as how bad the desirability on my end to acquire either brand was much higher with the Sonos Faber than the Von Stryker. But this has nothing to do with the performance. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying as far as how long I've wanted either brand, Sonos Faber had been on my radar for longer. Kodo, the Griffin Kodos, you guys saw it at Expona. It's a beautiful speaker with the carbon fiber sides. I mean, it's a spectacle. The Kodos is that speaker that when you walk into the room, I mean, you want to bow down to that. I mean, it's just a monstrous speaker. And I don't think it has space in here to breathe. It's very tall. It needs a big room, guys. I just don't think that speaker is a speaker that I could do justice with, given my room dimensions. It's too small. My room is too small for that speaker. I will try a stand mount speaker this year, and that will be probably the PS Audio FR5s. So if you are interested in seeing a PS Audio FR5 on here, reviewed by me, completely objective, without any BS, I better see you guys liking and subscribing and sharing these videos with a lot of other people that could definitely use such review. So the more people that hit the like button, the more people that I see subscribe to the channel, the faster I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call PS Audio and say, hey, I see my subscribership and my likes going crazy. I think it's time to get the PS Audio FR5s in here. People want it. What do we need to do? Tell me next steps. That's what I'll do. So remember that. So the ball is in your court. I would always be interested in the Focal Grande Utopia. The issue is that speaker, to me, I think it's just too big for my room too. I think that speaker needs a much bigger space. Also, quite frankly, I've done so much Focal. I've done so much Wilson Audio. I've done so much Magico. I was just sick of the three brands because I've already done so much of them. And I'm not talking about the sound. I'm just saying, damn, you know what I'm saying? Like I was ready to buy something new with my money. I didn't want the same sound. I was just tired of it. I was burnt out. But it's not that they're bad brands. I just needed to see if there was something else on the menu that attracted me. Speaking on about the menu, these speakers, in case you do not know, there's only 30 of them in the world. 30 of them. That means if you're sitting around waiting on the used market on AudioGone to get a pair of this specific model, the 17, you are probably going to be waiting a long time. I mean, a long time. Okay. So don't think that they're going to pop up any moment now on different websites and you're going to be able to score a deal. There's only 30 pairs of these. And last but not least, when they were released, these were not even on the actual dealer sheet. You have to buy this off menu. It wasn't on the menu. This speaker you needed to know about and inquire about and ask your dealer about it for them to be able to order you one, but you would never see it on the sheet or the website. Sonus Faber wanted to keep the speaker completely isolated, very, very exclusive, and this is why I don't believe you're going to see a lot of these secondhand market. You just won't. And I wanted something special, just like the Chronasonics, just like the Lyras that were here. I wanted something that also had that special factor to it. Okay. And I think that's what these are. Okay. There's no question about it. Okay. Let me see what else. Okay, next comment. No, I never consider B&O. That's just unfortunately not for my channel, not for me. It's not a brand that I'm interested in. Some of you guys are always asking me, why is it that Jay doesn't bring X brand, Y brand, Z brand? And let me explain to you why that is, okay? I saw a lot of great products at Expona, many great brands trying to make it, okay? But the truth is, if I'm being honest, you all impact my buying decisions. All of you who watch me right now, you guys are the ones who impact my buying decisions. And if you're wondering, how is that? If I go and buy a brand that may sound good, but it's obscure, it's in deep in the forest, like nobody knows it's even inside the forest, okay? What happens is when I need to get rid of that, you all don't buy it. I get stuck with it. And because of the fact that a lot of these things are a lot of money, I can't be hanging around or hanging out with a loudspeaker that could potentially have 40, 50, $60,000 in it and I can't sell it. That's a lot of money, folks. I can't be embarking on that. That doesn't work for me. That will never work for me. This is why some brands just will never appear on my channel. That does not mean they're not good product. It's just I need to have a plan for that item, which is called the exit plan. If I see that there is absolutely no exit plan, I can't just dump 40 grand, 50 grand and lose that kind of money. I can't afford to do that. I got a family to feed. So yes, a lot of my purchases are very strategic. Number one, it has to have a name. Number two, it has to have a following. Number three, it has to be, I have to be able to create interest, real interest from those of you. But the reality is that's not every brand out there, guys. Not every brand. And it's unfortunate because there is some good quality products out there. Definitely. But nobody buys them. So why am I going to be marching up and down with a trumpet, talking to you about it? You guys don't buy anything. Don't buy that product. You have no interest. You'll keep turning the page. That's why. Oh, wow. It's a hard one. Dynamic speakers, man. I think Wilson is for box speakers, the most dynamic speaker I've had, and horns, which is not a box speaker, but I think those are the two top brands that I can call very dynamic speakers. The rest of them, it's not that they don't have dynamics, but I don't think they do it to the nth degree, like, for example, Avantgarde and Wilson Audio. I have absolutely no input to give you, feedback to give you about Legacy Audio. Legacy Audio is an American brand. I believe they are in New York. They build some quality product, but unfortunately, again, I just don't see it having a place in my lab. This is why you haven't seen it. How long did I have to wait for my SE17s? Probably about a month. And then they appeared, and let me tell you, the logistics and putting them in place was brutal. The Chronosonic XVXs actually, I think, were harder, believe it or not. I mean, were easier, excuse me. The Chronosonic XVXs were actually easier than these. So the new flagship model, the Sonus Faber Suprema 750K, guys, you need a big room for that. It's 4 different boxes, 2 base towers, 2, and then the other 2 main towers with the mids and the highs, and then the external crossover. You need a big room for that, guys. I just don't have the space. Do I think that I can probably talk to Sonus Faber and figure out some kind of deal that could work for both of us? Yeah, I believe so. I believe I have enough reach now to be able to make a phone call and put together something with a brand because of who I am, because I am the only one showing this on YouTube. So yeah, I could definitely see that, but I don't have the space, let alone the money. That's a lot of money, another problem. So okay, so how do I compare this speaker with the Aidas? I was told I can't, I mean, okay, I'm going to compare it based on what I heard at Expona with the Aida 2s and what I know here. The Aida 2 is a phenomenal speaker. It scales massively. It's got tremendous bass. They share a lot of common traits. Where I think this speaker wins is that this speaker is a lot more detailed, more resolving. The Aida is warmer. It's a little warmer sounding. It's not the same tweeter. The Aida utilizes what's called an arrow point tweeter. That's not the same tweeter. Okay. The crossover on this thing is superior to the Aida as well. The inside, the construction, I mean, everything about this speaker is next level. It's essentially an Aida 2 on steroids. So this speaker is just the father of the Aida, but the Aida 2 for the money, it's a hell of a speaker. I would have absolutely no qualms about it. I would have no issues owning the Aida 2 in here. As a matter of fact, that's what I wanted originally. But again, opportunity. And that's what I ended up with. And I don't regret it one bit. I have MacIntosh 901s in here. I already said this. I have a pair here that will be used with the Sonus Faber at some point. So you're going to hear Sonus Faber with the MacIntosh 901s. I promise you that. We're going to do that. We're going to unpack the 901s. We're going to use the crossovers on the 901s to dial in the connections to make sure they match properly with the Sonus Faber SE17. So you're going to see 901s dialed in with these speakers. I promise you. That's why they're here. They've been here for about 2 months. I haven't thought about this. If I'm going to review the new $5,000 Source Point 888, it's not something that I can see not happening. Actually, that video did quite well for me, believe it or not. A lot of interest, a lot of traction, a lot of subscribers came from that review. So I would say this and the PS Audio loudspeaker are probably 2 reviews that I'm going to do this year. Okay, for sure, for sure. Okay, it's a great question. Can I differentiate the sound characteristics of your current speaker from Wilson Audio and the Focals? They couldn't sound any different. Sonus Faber has this originally, not the new breed of Sonus Faber, but the original Sonus Faber tended to be warmish, slower. They were more about classical music. They were not dynamic speakers. I feel like this new Sonus Faber generation of loudspeakers that we have today, they have corrected that. They have a lot more detail now. They have a lot more dynamics. They are, in my opinion, more current with the sound than before. So I prefer the new Sonus Faber sound than the former Sonus Faber sound. Okay, I've had the older generation Sonus Faber. I've had the Amati Futuras, and they were very warm speakers, not very big sounding. They didn't have a lot of dynamics, but now that has all changed. Now, how are these SE17s any different than a Wilson or a Focal or even a Magico? First, let me just say this, okay? All of them are great loudspeaker designers, brands, manufacturers, okay? All of them create quality products. So I want to say that first, okay? Secondly, the biggest advantage I feel Sonus Faber has is this sound that is more natural sounding. I find it a little more real sounding to my ears. There are times in which the speaker is playing in the background and I hear things and I think it's someone outside my door, only to realize it's the speaker in the room making a noise of some sort, right? So the realism of the Sonus Faber is real. What I like about this Sonus Faber is it's never bright. It's never fatiguing. It's never in your face. Now, can it be in your face? Can it be forward sounding? Absolutely. If you put bright stuff behind it, if you put crappy cables, crappy electronics, yeah, you can get it to sound harsh. You can really make it sound how it's not intended to sound. Okay, but I think naturally the DNA of this Sonus Faber loudspeaker is organic, romantic, sweet, engaging. Okay, Wilson, Magico, and Focal have extreme detail, extreme resolution. I dare to say that there might be a little more microdynamics and nuances that may pop off from those speakers better than these Sonus Faber. However, that doesn't really mean that you're going to be sitting in front of these speakers for longer listening sessions because you're getting an extra, extra nuances that are happening, and that would lead to a longer listening session. No, that's not necessarily true. I do think that those 3 make quality products, but I don't think they have naturally, without you having to do anything, they don't have the musicality of this Sonus Faber. Neither 3 of these brands have the musicality that these speakers have naturally without you having to do a thing, meaning you threw them into the room and they sound immediately very sweet, romantic, very engaging without you doing anything. That is not the case with Wilson. That is not the case with Magico, and that is not the case with Focal. Neither one of those 3 brands sound automatically very romantic, very musical, and very engaging. That is not how they sound straight out of the box. You got to work them. You got to start figuring out Am I going to use a Rev 6 SE preamplifier with some solid state amplifiers? Am I going to use a Lampensator DAC with the tubes to bring a little more romanticism to the presentation? What can I do to make the sound a little more natural sounding? You have to work harder with the other three brands, okay, than you do with these, in terms of turning the presentation a lot sweeter sounding. I want to make sure I say that, okay? So where the other three are better, I think, is when it comes to, again, getting the last ounce of resolution out to you. The other three are superior. When it comes to perhaps getting a little more transparency here and there, I think those three are better. But this does not mean that this speaker is not transparent. This speaker is extremely transparent, but it is transparent with a hint of sweetness on top. Does that make sense? It still lets you know, hey, here's what changed with what you just did. I'm gonna let you hear it, but it still tries to be very delicate with you. It still tries to say, this is what changed. Let me show you. And it gives you the changes in a very nice manner. The other are more like, here it is. What you see is what you get. Take it or leave it. Here, next change. This is what happened. That's how the other ones approach the neutrality and the transparency conversation. Does that make sense? So hopefully that's a good way of explaining how they're different. Now, there are more differences, and I have to think about these as I spend more time with these. I'll let you know those, but I want to make sure you understand all of them are great loudspeaker brands. No, so sorry. Yeah, this is a good question, a good opportunity that you guys need to understand. One good opportunity for me to say this. So I have someone here that says, someone's saying that they're in Boca. Boca is about 30 minutes away from me, and they want to come and listen to the speakers. I can't do that. Okay. Um, why don't I bring people over? Okay. I think I made a video about this years ago, but I think it's time for me to make another video. Number one, this is my residence. This is where my wife and my daughter live. Okay. They are under the same roof. I can't bring some random person. In the case of Faris, I don't know who he is, never heard of him. For all I know, that's the next guy that's going to commit a mass murder somewhere. For all I know, this is a crazy thief. For all I know, this is a person that has bad intentions. I have my daughter and my wife here. I can't bring random people in my home to come and sit down and listen to my stuff. I cannot. I'm not a store. If I was a store, yes, you can set up an appointment, come in, right? But I live in a house. I can't have random individuals show up, people that I don't know, never met at a show, never done business with them. I haven't been to their house. I haven't heard their system. I don't know their family. I don't have a vibe. I can't do that. The only people who come into my room to listen, to sit down, to spend quality time and play with my equipment are those that I know, that I have been to their houses, heard their systems. We text regularly. Or maybe people who have done business with me. In the case of my client in Cleveland, he has, I believe, a property about an hour and a half away from where I am. He can come, right? These are people that have already established relationship with me. I've stayed in their houses. They have accommodated me. I have a good feel for them. Okay. These are the only people that can come in and stay and relax and do whatever they want in my room and play with whatever I have. Can't have random people show up. Okay, I get emails almost daily from people who are saying, I am from Switzerland. I follow you, Jay. I am going on vacation. I'll be there next week. Can I come and chill with you? I can't do that, guys. To me, it's the dumbest thing I can do, knowing that I have a wife and a daughter here. Right? So I think you guys understand where I'm coming from. It's not a smart thing to do. So no, I cannot allow people to come in here if I don't know who you are and I've known you for a minute and I already have a good understanding of what you're about. Other than that, no, my house is off limits completely. Will we eventually see TAD reference lines in the lab? I mean, it was a thought, to be honest with you. I do see that opportunity still alive for the future, maybe in a few years. Right now, I don't think so. I don't. I think I've already identify other brands that I would rather have before I think about TAD, but it's got nothing to do with TAD at all. It's got nothing to do. It's got to do with business. It's got to do with relationships. It's got to do with other things. Okay, so I want you to understand it's got nothing to do with TAD. They're great people. David is a great individual, the distributor of the company. I have a great relationship with him. I am sure if I called him and I said, hey, let me try one of the reference speakers, the speaker will be at my door by Friday. I mean, I have good relationships with a lot of brands. So it's just sometimes opportunities that really change the direction in which I go. I do not know any celebrities at the time, unfortunately, and I don't know of many ultra high-end systems in South Florida, if I'm being honest. I only know of me at this time having a system of this caliber. I don't know of anyone else here in the South Florida area, and that is from Jupiter all the way down to Key West. I don't know of anyone that has a system of this caliber. Now, I'm not saying they don't exist, but they clearly are very well hidden and they're not as public. Thank you, Marcus. I'll see you in Munich, hopefully in about 10 days. Okay. So I'll see you in Munich. I'll be in Munich in about 14 days. Do I listen to hard rock or heavy metal? I do have a few songs, but I don't really like listening to hard stuff because of the fatigue and because I feel like it's hard to listen to it for a long listening session. If that makes sense, I feel like you get tired quickly with that type of music, unless you have warm speakers that can allow you to play it for extended periods of time. But I just have never been 100% into that type of genre. If that makes sense. So, what about triamping the Sonus Faber SE17? Maybe Griffin Apex. So I am, like I said earlier, I am planning. I got to do it at least one time. I got to hear my Sonos Faber at least one time triumphed. So just bear with me, okay? I have amplifiers, a lot of amplifiers coming. Okay, you'll see some serious amplifiers arriving in about 2 weeks, and these are set to be the best power amplifier that I've ever owned in my life. Okay, I'm telling you right now because you're watching me. In about 2 weeks, the next unveil video will be the most impressive, craziest power amplifier that I've ever owned. It's coming. And I am telling you right now, it will be the best power amplifier I've owned, period. No question about it. So stay tuned for that. What preamplifier are you excited to pair with Sonus Faber? Here are some preamplifiers and amplifiers pairings that I need to tell you guys about. I want to hear of course, I already hear Griffin with it. Now I want to hear a solution setup. I heard the solution 511 with the 520 preamplifier. It was phenomenal, fantastic. I want to hear the 7 series solution with it. I want to hear the esoteric M1Xs with the matching C1X preamplifier. That's 2. And I want to hear a full Mac 901 with the perhaps C1200 preamplifier. That's what I want to do. I want to hear those 2 and see what they do. So those 3 combinations. So I want to see what happens, how the speaker changes as I continue to play. Okay, what bookshelf speakers, 20,000 euros, do you think are better for Griffin, Pandora, and Essence? I would say look into the Boris and C1, man. I mean, that speaker was impressive. The Boris and C1 is $16,000, 16.5 here in the US. I would say you really need to look into that Boris and C1. I strongly suggest that you look at a C1. That's the first thing, the first speaker that comes to mind. Great question, David. Out of all the various ultra high-end speaker offerings at any price, which one do I think offers the truly highest level of convincing reproduction of realism? Well, I'm going to tell you the Chronosonic XVX is there. I mean, there's no, I can't put that off to the side. Chronosonic XVX is a phenomenal speaker. I still remember that speaker in my room. It was an accomplishment. It was basically a reward, a prize, if you will, for all my effort, for all my work throughout the years. Okay, I never thought I could afford a Chronosonic XVX, and I'm still. I mean, sometimes I still remember, the speaker being here and doing this immense, huge, tall presentation, lots of dynamics, realism. That speaker will always be remembered by me. But this speaker right here brings that level of realism for $110,000 less. So you have a $360,000 Chronosonic and you have a $250,000 Sonus Faber. I'm going to tell you, if you heard both of them, again, great choices by all means, amazing speakers. But you really have to look at the cash difference between both. $110,000, $113,000 difference. I think you would have a hard time justifying that extra expense for those Chronosonics when you hear these Sonus Faber. I mean, you would have a hard time. Tonally, they're different. They're Pepsi and Coke. They're both sodas. They're both dark, but they don't taste the same. That is completely subjective there, David. It's got to do with you and what really checks your boxes. If you have, for example, let's say your electronics were bolder electronics, neutral, fast, dynamic, clean, clear. Yeah, I think you might want to look at a Sonus Faber, because the Sonus Faber is going to take that information, still give you that clarity, the dynamics, but it's going to allow it to become more human, not so ultra revealing to the point that you cannot withstand certain tracks in your music collection. I think these Sonus Faber will inject this beautiful musicality on top that allows for you to listen to a wider variety of music, if that makes sense. So that's the difference. The Chronosonic is just going to take those boulders, show you what they got, but it's going to be a little more like, not in your face, but it's just a little more like raw and blunt with honesty, right? So you have to realize, as an audiophile, a lot of what you select for a loudspeaker has to do with your own personality. What am I trying to say? Well, are you one of those audiophiles that you get offended quite easily? I know a lot of audiophiles they're super sensitive. They get offended. They're really sensitive about their system, and God forbid you're telling them, hey, I think if you replace this USB and you bought this other one, your system would sound better. God forbid you tell them that. They get offended. They're like, oh my God, like, why are you telling me this? That's a sensitive personality. There are others that actually love constructive criticism, and that they're like, really? So you think that USB would be better? Tell me why. Have you heard it? Interesting. All right, I'm going to do some research. Maybe I'll buy it and compare it. Thanks for the input. That's a different type of audiophile, right? When you identify the type of audiophile that you are, that to me is a clear indication in which you have to be mindful of, excuse me, because the Sonus Faber and Wilson Audio will tell you the truth in different ways. Sometimes there are ways of telling the truth, even if it hurts, but make it as smooth as possible so it's not as painful, if that makes sense. And sometimes straight out hit you in the face with the truth, like it or not. That's the difference between the Sonus Faber and the Wilson Audio, if that makes sense. That's the best way to explain it. Yeah, I've heard it's a great brand. It's a great brand, but I think Paradigm Persona has been around the block for some time. I don't know if I would put all my money in a 9H right now. It's been out for a while. I think it's overdue for a replacement, and I would not be surprised if Paradigm Martin Logan released new products. Okay, it's been out for a minute, so I don't know if I would put that kind of money on a speaker that old. Do I normally have tone controls set to flat on the preamplifier? I never touched, I don't have any tone controls. Audiophile preamplifiers do not have tone controls, with a few exceptions. Luxman has tone controls, and I can't think of another brand that does. If there are more brands with tone controls, I don't know of them. So one thing you have to know, Mike, is tone controls tend to be very like frowned upon by purists, by audiophiles. Okay, in general, most 98%, I would say, of the two-channel preamplifiers, the best two-channel preamplifiers, don't use that because it's supposed to add more noise, more distortion, and it compromises other things. So I don't use any tone controls at all because I never have access to them with my preamplification. Thank you there. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's the plan. The plan is to enjoy these speakers. See you in Munich, Brandon. See you in Munich, Robert. I'm not planning on going to the LA show, to be honest. It's a very small show. It's very far from me. I mean, it's a 12-hour flight, 6 hours one way, each way. So it's 12 hours round trip. It's too much for me, and it's a small show. I don't see myself covering the LA show. I don't see myself covering the Seattle show either, the Pacific show. They're too far, and there's still shows that are too small, way too small to what I'm used to. Plus, remember, it costs me money, guys. I have to recuperate all these expenses. So that's something to always factor in. Transparency against Lyra. This speaker, I'm not sure what you're asking. So you may want to rephrase your question and come back with a clear statement. That way I know what you're asking. Are the difference between the high-end preamplifiers and amplifiers that I use very big? They are very different, but it's more a tonal difference rather than the actual qualities of the sound. For example, Solution, Griffin. Pure example here. Both have tremendous bass extension. Both have huge sound stages. They both image fantastic. They both have a ton of resolution at a high level. That's how they're similar. Now, how they're different is their tonal characteristics. Solution is a lot clearer sounding, far clearer sounding. Griffin is a lot more liquid sounding than Solution. Solution is faster sounding. That's not to say that Griffin is slow. Griffin is also fast, but I think the design, the amplifier topology makes Solution sound lightning fast. Okay. So think of it as one having this feeling of more urgency to deliver to you the performance. The other one wants you to kind of like, hey, let me allow you to see and hear everything, and I don't want to rush through it. So that's where they're different, is the tonal characteristics, but overall, the attributes themselves are the same. That's what happens at a very, very top with these loudspeakers, amps, and preamps. All of it is excellent, excellent components. But that's when it gets harder. That's when you have to identify where are you leaning, which is the one that checks more of your boxes. My pleasure there, JP. My pleasure. How does Sonus Faber compare to the Rockport Lyra? Good question. Well, first, I would say the similarities are, one, they're both beryllium tweeters and a very smooth, linear beryllium tweeter. When I say smooth, I want you guys to understand one thing. This doesn't mean it's got nothing to do with the speaker being rolled off. It's not what I'm saying. It's a smooth delivery of the high frequencies while still retaining all the resolution, all the nuance, and being as linear as possible. Now, how they accomplish that, that might be beyond my pay grade as far as how they do that. I'm assuming Sonus Faber, part of it is the carbon coat that it has. And I think Rockport may have another trick up their sleeves to make the tweeter sound so relaxed sounding and fatigue free. Rockport also has a complete different approach to cabinet construction. They are, they're super intense and super dedicated to building one of the most inert cabinets in the loudspeaker industry. I dare to say it might be the most inert cabinet. Okay. I don't know. I have no way of measuring these things. So their construction is second to none. How they're different is Sonos uses wood. Rockport Lyra does not use any wood. Okay. They both have the same beryllium tweeter. They're both flagship models. And let me think about what else. That's about it. Now, when it comes to sound, that's where things get a lot more different. The Lyra has a incredible amount of resolution and detail. It allows you to hear, for example, I'll never forget this. I will never forget this, and I'll say it here again, and I'll thank the Rockport Lyra for teaching me this. I remember playing my music every day when I was done with my day, picking up my iPad and just queuing up songs and pushing play. And the Rockport Lyra was the very first speaker that actually showed me that when you're playing digital and you rebooting your music server actually improves the sound before you even start your listening session. I never really thought about that before or heard it as clear, as crystal clear as I heard it with the Rockport Lyra. Yes. And that's when I got in the habit of always rebooting now my music server before I sit down and do long extended listening sessions. So believe it or not, that speaker is crazy revealing. Okay. The bass is probably, if not one of the most articulate basses, low registers, one of the most articulate low registers I've ever heard. The Rockport Lyra allows you to get so much closer to the performance that's really spooky, very three-dimensional. What the Sonus Faber does is it puts you closer to the stage because it's a much bigger speaker, rear firing drivers. It's got a much bigger presentation than the Rockport Lyra, far bigger. The Sonus Faber probably rivals the Chronosonic XVX in terms of the size of the soundstage. Okay. Also, this is a more romantic speaker than the Rockport Lyra. The Rockport Lyra, I think, is a little closer to the other three brands, Focal, Magico, and Wilson Audio when it comes to what it does. Okay, it's a very revealing speaker. But you have to try to make it musical by adding the right collection of electronics. That's one thing you have to remember. Again, nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. This one just has its DNA already. That's what this one does. Thank you, Jose. I appreciate it. I am not talking about the Riviera hybrid amps right now. No, haven't talked about them. Yeah, Boulder and Sonus Faber sounds amazing, by the way. I got to tell you, sounds incredible, insane. I think it's always worth it to go up the ladder if you can and your room allows for it. Okay, but if you're happy with your X2s and you have nothing to really nitpick about, excuse me, if you have no reason to change out of the X2s, if you're liking the sound, if you are really just curious to see how much better an X3 is, I would say why do it? Save your money. If you're happy with the X2, don't buy the X3. Stay with it. Enjoy the X2. Trust me, that day will come in which you get tired of the X2, and then maybe you make the switch to the X3. This is a perfect opportunity to share and tell you something, okay, that I have never said. And maybe this is going to be very instrumental for most of you out there. You might appreciate this advice. There is such thing as the honeymoon phase, okay? Honeymoon phase in this hobby. That is when you bring a new speaker, new preamp, new amplifier, whatever it is. You plug it in and you're floored. You're blown away. You can't wait to get home after work. You cannot wait until your daughter or your kids go to sleep so you can turn on your system and enjoy music until 2 o'clock in the morning. You are so pumped, like you have a new reason to wake up every day because you're looking forward to listening to your system. This is the honeymoon phase. My advice is to enjoy that to the fullest. Do not change anything. Do not say to yourself, oh my God, it sounds so good. I wonder how much better it would be if I just got rid of this Mola Mola and I bought a Lampensator or a DCS Bartok or whatever, or, or any other brand. Oh my God. Do not do that to yourself. Don't ask yourself those questions. It is a mistake, okay? If you are enjoying your system, if you just got that next component, whatever that is, or speaker, and you're floored, enjoy those days. And if they take 30 days and you're still happy and they're still sounding amazing, do not change a thing. Don't buy nothing. Do not commit the mistake of changing things when you are in the middle of a honeymoon. Can't change your wife while you're in the middle of honeymoon, right? I hope you can't. Okay, you can't change your wife. Do the same. Don't change a thing. Remain committed to that honeymoon phase. Eventually, it'll have less of an impact on you. You're going to get used to it. And then that time will come back where you're thinking about that next purchase to improve upon the performance of this component that blew you away. Okay, so that's advice number one. Advice number two. I've said this to my ultra hi-fi members, the members that are on my, got an ultra hi-fi member, Jay's Audio Lab. See that? Huge conversations here, guys. See, Jay's Audio Lab, ultra hi-fi members. Lots of members in here. Okay. These are my closest followers. I always tell them all the time. If you can't hear a difference between two products, okay, if you cannot hear a difference, things that you need to look at. Number one, have you worked on your room acoustics? Are you listening in the middle of the patio? Do you really have a room? Do you have the room as best as you can? Because the room will negate these small differences. Okay. If the answer is, well, I try to listen, Jay, but I can't hear a difference between these two speaker cables at all. I always blame the room, number one, and number two, the most important part of this conversation. How well do you know your system? You should be able to close your eyes like this, hear 5 systems with your eyes closed, and when you play songs that you know, you should be able to know that is my system. That is my system. That's how well you need to know your system, right? But if you're still in front of a brand new system that you just built, you're not going to hear the differences because you're still getting used to the sound. You understand what I'm saying? I always see it all the time on forums. These guys are crazy. I can't hear a difference. That doesn't make a difference. I always say it does make a difference, assuming that you have at least a proper room and that you know your system with your eyes closed, that you know what it sounds like, right? If you don't even know what your system sounds like, you're never going to know what changed when you introduce a new component. Okay. This is something that I see people always making the stupidest statements all the time around the web. Outlets, they don't make a difference. These guys are selling snake oil. It's stupid. There's no difference. When I ask them, how is your room? Bad room. How long have you had your system? How long have you been in front of it? What have you changed recently? Oh, yeah, I changed speakers, amps, and preamps. Dude, you don't know your system yet. You're still getting used to the sound of your system. So don't embark on making aggressive purchases unless you know your system quite well. You've spent enough time in front of it, enough hours, okay, listening to it to the point that it almost sounds boring to you because you know exactly what to expect. That is when you will hear differences, when you know what your system does quite well. All right. Remember those two words of advice. It is super important. I used to make these mistakes in my early days. And now, with my Sonus Faber, as a matter of fact, I'm still getting used to the Sonus Faber, which is why I haven't even moved them too much, because I'm getting used to the sound. And so to embark on changing outlets, footers, it's stupid. I'm still in the honeymoon phase with them. Okay. So please apply this to your own journey. Believe me, you'll thank me when I say this. Don't ever buy a component if you don't even know your system quite well. Wait until you know what your system does before you pull out your credit card and buy that next component. Last but not least, assuming that you have a good room, assuming that you have already spent tons of hours with your system, you know what your system is about, okay, and you're buying the next component and you still cannot hear a difference between two components that you are evaluating in a system that you know 100% quite well, okay, that you've sat in front of for days, hours, weeks, months, okay, then my advice is stay with the cheaper component. Don't buy the more expensive component. If you can't hear a difference, don't buy the more expensive one. Buy the cheap one, okay? Most dealers will never give you that advice. I always say that. If you can hear it, stay with the cheap one. Thank yourself. Thank your mom and your dad because you can't hear a difference. Continue with the cheap one, the cheap component. Don't buy the expensive one. I'm looking at your question, guys. Hit that like button, please, guys. 273 of you watching me right now. I would really appreciate a lot of likes right now so that we can call on more people and make this a very interesting conversation. You guys know I appreciate you very much. It's a great question, Rob. How long are my listening sessions? Um, my listening sessions now are not as long as they used to be. I would say, well, yesterday I had a long listening session. I had a 4-hour listening session yesterday, but on average, I can only do about an hour and a half. That's about it. So it's not 5-6 hours like I used to in my early days because I always got something going on. There's always something happening that I need to be mindful of. Okay. So let me see. As far as the sound of Sonus Faber compared to Wilson and Magico, if you just got here, I've already answered this, Rob. So circle back to the beginning of this video. Yeah, power makes a massive difference. I mean, if you're not taking care of your power, I don't know what to tell you. That's like saying you don't care about the screen that you're using with your video projector. You're just reflecting it on the wall and call it in a day. It's stupid. You need a screen. You need a quality screen to really appreciate the capabilities, the potential of your video projector, right? You have to have a projector screen. So it's the same thing with sound. You need to have the power address, whether it be a Strom tank, which I'm a dealer for, and I only recommend Strom tank here. I'm not shameless. I don't have to have any shame by saying this. So select your power conditioning, whatever it is, but you need to treat your power. You need to have ideally 2 to 3 20 amp dedicated outlets coming from your circuit breaker. Ideally 2 to 3. Okay. At least 2 for sure. 3 would be better. Okay. But 20 amp outlets, If you can do aftermarket like Fewer Tech, great, even better. And figure out your power management. If you want to get a Shunyata Denali or a Shunyata Everest, or you want to get a Strom tank, that's on you. That's up to you depending on your budget. But you need to definitely address your power needs. It is very important when it comes to sound. M7s, man, I really wish I could afford the M7. I really wish I could afford such a magnificent loudspeaker. I have no reason to believe that this speaker isn't one of the greatest speakers manufactured today. It'll be a few years before you see an M7. I'd say 26, maybe 2026 before you see an M7 on my channel. It would be it's just brand new. I mean, people are still taking delivery of the M7. It's that new. What are the pluses of a rear firing mid-range driver and a tweeter? The sense of depth. The depth of the speaker is far more than you can usually get from conventional speaker designs, meaning those speakers that don't have a rear mounted tweeter or a mid-range driver. It gives you more realism. When you hear a speaker with rear mounted drivers and you turn on your music, also I feel as if the decays are longer. So the tiniest details begin on the music that you select, and they begin to fade out, and they take longer and longer and longer to fade completely out. And that is because there is a communication happening between the front and the rear tweeters. They're doing a magnificent job at making those decays take longer than they normally would. Okay, so that's one thing that I love about the rear mounted design, the rear mounted tweeters and mid-range drivers. This is one of the things that I loved about Wilson Audio with their big speakers, the XLF, which I had, and also the Chronosonic XVX. I love those mounted mounted tweeter. It gives you it gave you the feeling of a taller presentation, more airiness, and it's just a cooler feel. There's a lot more dimensionality with those types of speaker designs. That's the best way to put it. So thank you for following me there. Appreciate it. Appreciate your comment. You wanted to know if, yeah, I mean, look, man, I'm not going to say that you can't find good stuff that's vintage. I'm not going to say you can't find great Corel amplifiers from the 90s, Mark Levinson amplifiers from the 90s and 80s that recapped and reconditioned like wouldn't impress. I'm sure they would impress when you consider the money that you're putting into those amplifiers today. But you can't really compete with the new offerings. I mean, listen, a lot has changed, and I understand some people say it's the same thing. It's a transformer, output stage, and input stage, and some binding posts in the back, and that has never changed. Well, if you look at solution amps, that's not how they're laid out. It's a switching power supply. It's a different approach to amplification. So there is a perfect example of how amplifiers are also changing. Okay, so there is always this feeling that people love to express to me, which is, oh, it's just a ripoff. Everything is snake oil. It's the same thing, just in a different chassis. I don't believe so. I have had old Krell amplifiers here. I've had old Mark Levinson's here. And I'm telling you, when I put a Griffin amplifier in front of those, it's not even a contest. It's a laughing matter. Honestly, it's a laughable comparison, because these new Griffin amps are using silver cables inside. They're using brand new Mundorf capacitors. They're using superior binding posts. They're using far better construction and noise isolation. All of this. There's so much more that goes into this. So vintage stuff is great, but let's not get it twisted, okay? It doesn't really compete against some of the best offerings today. Now, does that mean that you can't find some good vintage that could potentially rival some new offerings from today? Of course you can, but that's like an isolated event. I don't think that's typically the case. Okay. That's all I want to say to you. Always remember that. Do I think speakers, box speakers, are my favorite, the best design, or just my preference? My preference. My first love were Martin Logan speakers. The Renaissance 15As, the Martin Logan Montes, you might remember those. Then I had the CLXs, ARTs, and then I had the big Neoliths. All of them are phenomenal loudspeakers. Those were my first love, panels. Okay, I still have a soft spot, really soft spot for those. But I just feel like the dynamics of a box speaker is just next level. You know, once you get used to real dynamics, once you get used to this big, wide sound, it's very hard to let go of it. Panels have their limitations. Panels image like no other. The mid range on a panel is arguably unmatched by many box speakers. But outside of that, when you move off to the left or to the right, you are starting to hear the problems of the off axis response, meaning you're starting to see how when you move to the right chair or the left chair, now only that speaker directly in front of you is the only one singing to you. Those are some of the challenges with panels, as opposed to boxes, which they tend to be a little more forgiving when it comes to off-axis response. Yes, depending on the model, of course, depending on the tweeter selection, I understand that. But more oftentimes than not, you will see box speakers do better at off-axis performance than panels. So I still have a soft spot for panels, but I just don't see them in my future. Is the Lampensator DAC Horizon a good match? Absolutely an amazing match with the Sonus Faber. Incredible. Those two are, man, they take you to dance. They take you to the dance. They invite you to go out there to the middle, in the middle of the dance floor and start dancing. I mean, those two just do incredible things together. The level of engagement that they have, second to none. Second to none. Loved Sonus Faber with the Lampensator Horizon. I hope you guys, those of you who own Sonus Faber speakers, are looking for a DAC that you can look closer and check out all these Lampensator models. I think that the synergy is just undeniable. Undeniable. I'm telling you. Magico to Borison, they're very different sounding speakers. Magico to me is the most honest, neutral speaker there is. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you something you may not know. I am about 20 minutes away from the Wire World manufacturing facility. You know, you've heard of Wire World cables, right? They're about 15 minutes away from me. And I remember going to see them last year. I don't know exactly what it was about. And I remember seeing the main designer of the speakers, of the speaker cables, the speakers in general, excuse me, the cables, the designer, the Wire World designer, cable designer. Guess what they had inside their listening room? A Magical S3 MK1. And they said to me, we utilize Magical to figure out where we need to go with the cables because they're so revealing and they get out the way when it comes to the performance. So I think Magical is just an extremely neutral, revealing speaker, something that some of you might hate and some of you might love, depending on your personality, as I said earlier on this video. Borison, I am going to be very specific, and I'm going to say, for example, the Borison O2 that I had here. That's a surprising speaker for the money. I feel like for me, the Borison may have a little more of this. Again, the O2. O2. I'm talking about the O2. This romantic feeling to it. that I don't necessarily find in any magical model. I don't. Okay, so that I liked about the Borison O2. I also feel like the Borison speaker is more dynamic. Magical needs a ton of power because they're seal enclosures. And if you can buy these crazy MIT cables that I have here that are $100,000, then that magical speaker gets that much more dynamic. This is why, in case you don't know, one of the reasons why you've seen the magical Q7 MK2 with MIT ACC 268 loudspeaker cables together at shows, because that speaker cable makes the magical speaker become more dynamic, which is not necessarily something that magical is known for. I'm not going to say they are not dynamic, but they are not Wilson audio when it comes to this particular quality. Wilson is far more dynamic than magical. And so Borison to me is definitely more dynamic than magical. And they do have this spooky realism, the Borison sound, and they achieve this with speakers that are not very big either. Okay, they're very narrow. They don't take up a lot of real estate. Again, I was completely impressed with the O2 Silver Supreme that I had here. So they're very different. Okay, very different sound. American sound versus Danish sound. Both of them are fantastic loudspeakers. You cannot go wrong with either one of them. The Class Audio amplifiers, the new ones, I don't have any opinion yet. Maybe at some point I will give you some feedback on them. I just have so much in front of me, guys. I mean, there is so much gear, so much equipment that I have that's coming in that I rarely have the time to think about these other small opportunities like Class A Audio, Legacy Audio, these other brands that are there, but they're just not enough of a flashlight for me to look in that direction, if that makes sense. They're not. But it doesn't mean that they're bad. It's just I have bigger things in front of me that I need to get to. Okay. That's the only reason why you don't see some of these models. I have not had a chance to call or email Sonus Faber yet, but I do have MacIntosh 901s in here. As I said, they're here. You'll get to see them on the channel with the Sonus Faber. So you will get to hear a couple of cuts of music of these speakers with the 901 MacIntosh mono. So stay tuned for that, okay? I'm going to use the Lampensator Horizon DAC directly into these 901 mono blocks to see what kind of results we get. I have never heard the M7s yet, Brian. Maybe at some point. So far, I haven't had a chance to listen to those speakers. I want to, but I think I'll see them in Munich. I hope they have them in Munich playing music. That's my hope. And if they do have them in Munich, believe me, I am going to do everything I can to put sound clips of these M7s online. I've already answered this, Andy. Scroll up, go back on the video. I've already answered this question. Paul, I already answered this question as well. To the next one. I mean, it's not ideal. Look, it's not ideal to have a flat screen in between your speakers. Look, it's not ideal. Is it going to kill the performance 100%? No. But it certainly isn't good when you have that reflective surface, that glass between the speakers. Okay, that can create sound reflections that are not truthful to the presentation. They don't really do any justice to your system's performance. So ideally, you want to cover your flat screen with a cloth or something that you can buy on Amazon to prevent that from happening. Okay, it's always advisable that you look into those treatments that you can put on the television when you do any sort of critical listening. Great question, and there is no way of knowing, man. You got to hear those speakers in your own environment or at your local dealer. You can't. It's hard to judge speakers if they are in two different rooms, two different places, venues. It's very hard. It's very hard. So all you can do is use your best judgment to see which one may have more potential for you in your current space. But you're right. It's very, very difficult to do this. I already answered this. Actually, I answered this on the Ultra Hi-Fi member section. I have a long explanation on how Wilson and Magico and Focal compare. Okay, there's a video there, a private video, where I go completely raw and uncut about all three brands. If you care to see that, become a member of my website, and you'll see a ton of videos that I will never put on YouTube. Well, maybe they'll love my MacIntosh 901s. Let's see if my Sonus Faber will love MacIntosh 901s. So the burning problem is a thing. Okay. Right now, I am not getting all the results that I am expecting out of this $100,000 speaker cable, which is the MIT ACC268. And I am being told that what I need is 200 to 300 hours of playback time. Okay. So I guess you can say that I am going to have to give the cables a fair shot and leave the system playing music for 3-4 days before I can come back and listen to it again. Burning, settling in is a thing. It's real. Okay. It's real, especially when you're hearing something that you're like, everyone has recommended this piece. It's sounding like crap in my system. Am I doing something wrong? Am I not really giving it a shot? Should I just wait a little longer? Should I play it for longer and not pay attention to the sound? Yes, you need to give components a fair shot. Usually that means enough days for them to be in the system, enough hours playing music through them, perhaps tweaking a few things around the system, and then try again. And after trying multiple things for weeks on end, if you feel that things may have gotten a little better, but not drastically better, then it's not the right component for your system. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you may read articles or get recommendations from people like me and other YouTubers about a certain component. You bring it into your room, you're not impressed, and then you tweak it a little more, give it time, let it settle, change a cable or two, and still you feel like it's not for you. That just means that, unfortunately, for your current system, maybe with your current amplifiers and preamplifiers, it's not meant to be for those. That happens. Synergy is something that many of you never seem to pay attention to. Synergy is a thing. This is why you hear brand A with brand B always works. There's a reason for that. Okay, so when you become your own cook in the kitchen, you go through a trial period where you're mixing all sorts of ingredients to see what the outcome is. Does it taste good? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it too sweet? Too salty? What do you feel? And so that is no different with audio. Okay, remember that. So just because you read that something is great does not mean it is going to be incredible in your system. And yes, I hate to say it, the only way you get to know whether it is good or bad is by you buying it and trying it, or working with a reputable dealer that can bring it to your home and leave it there for a few days for you to see what it does and see if you want to buy it from them. Yeah, triamping is just three amplifiers, whether it be 3 amplifiers, 3 monos per side, or maybe 3 stereo amplifiers. So it's just adding 3 channels to each speaker. So look at it in the Sonus Faber. You'll have the side firing woofer. One is going to handle that, okay, and then the mid range will be a different amplifier, and then the high frequency a different amplifier. That's all that is. This is a 3.5 way speaker. Okay, 3.5 way, in case you're wondering. So that's essentially all that means, and that creates far more transparency, of course, more power. So there should be more effortlessness. And I will say that every time I have bi-amped the speaker in the past, in the case of the Focal Maestro, there is a significant improvement when you do that. No denying of that. There is a massive difference when you can do that. No, that's never happened to me. No company has ever consulted with me to before and after I did a review. That doesn't happen because I don't want to have those forces on me, because I buy components. As I said to you, I buy them with my own money. So I don't have any sort of like, I'm not a puppet for any company. So they're not going to come and control me, okay? Because I buy everything. Every single brand, okay, that I have had here, I've bought. And if I haven't bought it, you probably heard me say that on a video. But I'd say 98.5 to 99% of what you see here is bought by me. That means they have absolutely no control over what I say. It's only an objective review. And if you are objective as a reviewer, you should find pros and cons about any product, because no product is perfect. That's the truth. As I said, the power requirement on these Sonus Faber speaker is significant. They can take 1,000 watts of unclipped power, no problem. They can swallow that kind of power all day, every day. Ideally, I would love to have the MacIntosh 2.1 kW monos that just released. That's my wish. Unfortunately, there are not many dealers who can sell that. Unfortunately, there's not many dealers who can sell that. Okay. And I have to be mindful of that. Okay. But I think my audiophile mind tells me, Jay, we need to try the 2.1 kWs with those speakers and see what they do. That's really what I want to do. I want to feed them a ton of power and just see what's possible with those speakers. Okay, but for now, I absolutely feel like my Apex are fantastic with these speakers. And I have 3 other amplifiers that we're going to try. We're going to try Esoteric M1X monos. We're going to try MacIntosh 901s. And I think we might see some 7 series solution at some point. So there's a lot. There's so much more we're going to do with these Sonus Faber SE17s. Okay, guys. It's been an hour and 43 minutes. It's been an honor being with you here on a Sunday afternoon. Please do not forget to check out my website. There's a lot of new stuff, high-end stuff for sale that I just listed. Okay, there's a lot of quality products there. If you're always looking for good deals on the ultra high-end, please keep my website right in front of you. Okay, save it to your favorites. I always list my stuff on my site first, and I'm very responsive at it. I like to make sure that I stay very close to those buyers that, that want to do business with me. Anyone who's bought from me knows I'm the real deal when it comes to selling high-end audio. And, I would love to partner with you guys. I would love to be that person that can hopefully give you good opportunities with the ultra high-end audio equipment, which oftentimes is not found on other websites. Okay. So if you have any interest in purchasing the ultra high end, see my website. If you have any interest on any doing a consultation with me to elevate your knowledge, perhaps pick my brain about certain amplifier you're thinking about. Is it going to have the right synergy with it, this preamp that you have? Or maybe you need a DAC and you don't know which DAC to buy. You have 3 options that you want to discuss with me. I'm going to get you closer to where you need to be based on what you want, not what I tell you, but based on what you want, based on the feedback that you provide me with. That's part of the consultation service, okay? It is the best money you can spend, because if you're looking at 5 different options of amps or preamps or DACs and you're confused, and these things are anywhere from 20 grand to 50 grand, why are you doing this to yourself? You're reading comments from minions on forums that haven't owned any of this stuff that you're contemplating. And so you're getting opinions from the dudes that are driving Hyundais and Kias. I mean, no disrespect to Hyundai and Kia, but why are you getting opinions from dudes who own Hyundais and Kias when you're trying to buy a Lamborghini? I don't understand that. I mean, I'm confused. Why are you getting those opinions from people that haven't even seen the stuff that you're trying to buy? You see what I'm saying? I've said this a million times. I've said it. You're looking into a Lamborghini, a Porsche, a Ferrari. Talk to the dudes that own that. Get into those car clubs. Go to those car meets. Ask them questions. Hey, dude, I want to buy a 911. Are there any problems with the transmission? Anything I should be looking at? I don't know. Should I look at the history? What is it that I need to be on the lookout for? This is what you do. You don't ask the dudes that have only seen a 911 Porsche, never even sat in one. But a lot of you love to ask for opinions and advice from, I hate to say it, from punks that don't know anything, that have never been in front of any of this. Get qualified opinions. Get qualified opinions that are going to steer you in the right direction. That's what I'm always saying. I did not have this opportunity when I started this journey. I did this solo by myself, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do you want to do that? Do you want to be spending $800,000 a year until you find the right amplifier for you, and speakers and amps and preamps? Is that what you want to do? That's what I'm saying. All of my ultra hi-fi members and everyone who's done work with me can tell you this. I play with this stuff. You see it on my channel all day long. This is why I keep telling you, stop reading the dumb comments on forums all over the globe. They're meaningless comments. Always look at what they own. Why are you listening to the dude that's parking Kias and Hyundais? You're trying to park a Porsche. You understand what I'm saying? An Audi R8. Those are the dudes you talk to. But sometimes us men, we want to believe what we want to believe, not the reality sometimes, unfortunately. It's not the reality, okay? Facts. That's what you need, facts. All right? So if you're interested in my consultation service, shoot me an email. Let's set up a video call. These are video calls, okay? And we can talk at length about your issues and about whatever it is that you're contemplating. And I promise you, I will give you a completely unbiased opinion and information about other things that you may never hear publicly. Okay? That's all I got for today, guys. Thank you for that support, and I will see you hopefully in Munich. Take care. Have a beautiful rest of your week. Peace.